Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hi, some of you may know me. I'm Jenn and I've been coming here to Full Gospel. It'll be a year this Good Friday. And I guess my story starts off a little bit tumultuous. I grew up in a household of dysfunction. There was a lot of abuse and drugs and alcohol, and so it was a little rough growing up. And we were forced to go to church when I was younger, and I truly didn't even believe in a God, because I thought, if there was a God, why would he allow my family to go through this? Why would he let us have to suffer this way? So I kind of thought it was a joke, and grew up most of my teen years thinking God's a joke. Many times I made fun of those who were Christian or who believed in God. Anyway, as I grew up, when I turned 13, I was introduced to alcohol and started drinking, and it was a weekend drink, and that turned into weeknight drinks and finding excuses to have a drink, and that turned into drugs, and what was fun turned into way more than I ever wanted it to be, which was fine during my teen years, and as I got older into my 20s, I was doing it more and more because I was lost. I didn't really know where I fit in. Everybody knew me as Party Jen or as Good Time Jen, and when I didn't have a drink, people would say to me, "What's wrong? Like, is there something wrong?" And I got to a point that I didn't even know who I was without it. When I came into my 20s, I knew the difference. I knew that drinking all the time and hiding it wasn't right. I knew that, and so I would buy it and I would hide it, but I didn't know how to act without it. So even going out to a dinner or going out to a family function, I would have a couple of drinks just to take the edge off. And I knew when I was a child, we used to go to counseling sessions, and the counselor would tell me that you have a 50-50 chance. You've grown up, you've come from a long cycle of abuse, and your great-grandfather and your grandfather and your dad has gotten into this, and you have a 50-50 chance. You need to stay clear of it. And I knew it was wrong. I felt horrible about it, but that was the only way I knew how to deal. That was what I was used to seeing. That was what I grew up seeing. And as I got into my 20s, I met my husband Joel, and I kind of kept a lot of that from him too. He had no idea how much I was into it. So I met Joel and his family, and they were very religious to me. His family were devout Christians, and it really frightened me. I thought, I'm not even worthy to be in their presence, and I didn't know how I was going to behave, and it was very awkward at first, but I came to realize that they were really, really good. They never pushed God on me at all. They never pushed any of their church. They didn't do any of that, which was great, and I immediately began to feel comfortable with them. During that time, just before I met Joel and leading up to Joel, I began searching because I felt like I needed to stop. I needed to stop this roller coaster I was on, and I needed to find something worthwhile in this life. And I started looking at all different types of religions and just looking for something that made sense to me, and just came up short every single time. And I just felt alone. And then I met Joel, and I knew he was my soulmate. I knew that, and there was a bond and a connection that we had, and I felt bad having this secret of deep down inside of me that I didn't even want to let him in on. So we ended up getting married, and I continued to kind of hide this little bit of a secret life, and I got pregnant with Haley, my daughter. And for the first time since I was about 13, and I was 29 when I got pregnant with her, I hadn't had a drink in 9 months, and it was what should have been the most enjoyable time of my life. It was horrendous because I was completely lost. Completely, I didn't know who I was. And not being able to run to that vice of mine was horrible, and I kept a lot of it in, and I did my best to put on a happy face and just go about it, but it was horrible. And at the time, I look back now and I think God had to have been with me during those 9 months, because for me not to have a drink was like phenomenal. And I thought, well, you know what? I did 9 months. I think I can do this when I had her. But I didn't. After I had her, I got home, and the first thing I wanted was a drink. So I had a few drinks, and it got to a point when Haley was a couple of months old. I was battling depression, and the only way that I could function was, again, going for a bottle or for a drink. And it was to the point that Haley would go down for a nap, and I would have a couple of drinks just to get me through my day. It was the only way that I could find peace at that time, but it wasn't peace, because I immediately felt guilty and horrible, and I felt like the worst mother in the world. And anyway, one day I was talking to Joel, and when I grew up, everyone in my family got baptized when they were babies. And I thought, well, family members were coming to me and saying, you get Haley baptized when she was a few months old. And I said, sure. So I mentioned it to Joel, and he said, okay, but I don't want to get her baptized. I wanted to get her dedicated. It didn't matter to me at all. I could care less. It was just, to me, it meant nothing more than having family together and having a party to celebrate a new baby. So they suggested the church that his mom was going to at the time, and I said, well, sure, whatever. We'll go. I don't want to just go and ask. We'll go a couple of times and make an appearance. And then we can ask, and then we can be done with it and leave. And the first time that we went out to this church is very similar to Full Gospel, which was completely different from the church that I grew up in. And it really scared me. It was completely different. I wasn't used to the worship music. I wasn't used to the different things that were going on, and I didn't even want to go back. But I did. We went back the next week, and when I went back, when I walked into the church that time, I felt, I don't even know how to describe it. I just had this overwhelming sense within me, and I just started bawling. Could not stop crying at all, and I felt humiliated. I was biting my lip and pinching myself because I thought, I've only been to this church twice, and here I am sobbing uncontrollably. And as the message went on, it was like everybody in the entire place was gone. It was empty, and it was me and what the pastor was saying, and it just hit me so hard in my heart and in my head that all I could do was weep. And I left there and just didn't have a clue what had happened, but everything came out, and everything that he had said was exactly what I needed to hear. And I went home, and me not believing in God at this time, I just sat on my couch and didn't know how to pray, but I just said, look, if you're real, like, I need to know. Like, I need you to show me who you are. I don't know anything about you. I need you to make yourself real, and you need to make yourself real to me, because I've got this issue, and I had a vision of my life being completely torn apart. My husband, who is my soulmate, and my daughter being torn away from me, because I could just see this snowballing more and more and more, and I would be alone. I would be alone, and I would be living the life that my dad lived and my grandfather lived, and I'd be doing it to my own child, and I just wanted to break those chains, and I didn't know how to do it. No matter how hard I tried, I didn't know how to do it. So I prayed, and pretty much took it away. Pretty much immediately took it away. I'm not going to say it wasn't a bit of a struggle, because it was very hard to go through finding a new way, a new approach to dealing with issues, and to just getting through life and finding peace in something. But I looked to God, and I prayed, and I didn't know anything about the Bible. I started out with a children's Bible and just read it from beginning to end, just so I knew what the Bible was about. And then I started reading, and everything that I read about, the questions that I had, it would be in there, it would be answered, and I couldn't stop. I just kept going and going and going, and I couldn't get enough. And for once, I felt like, wow, this is it. This is it. Like, this is what I was looking for. And it just made sense to me. And from that was 5.5 years ago. And my life hasn't been wonderful at all times by any stretch. It's been sometimes harder since I've become a Christian and since I've given my life to God. But it's been rewarding, and there's been peace and comfort, and not the same way that I had before. Now when I'm going through trials and issues, I know that somebody's there. I know that I can turn to God and I can pray to Him, and He's there and He's going to help me through it. And He has. He's given me the grace and everything that I need to get through it. And there's been some trying times that my husband and I have gone through. We've lost a child. I had to give birth to a little girl maybe 2 years ago, it was 2 years ago this April, Emily Grace. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. And I prayed that entire time, and He got me through that. And sorry. Okay. So like I said, about a year ago this Good Friday, we came over by chance to Full Gospel Assembly. Literally because we were running late for the church that we normally were going to, and happened to go online onto Facebook, and there was a posting on there about the Good Friday service here, and I said, let's just go over, we'll take we'll just go over directly. We actually live directly across the street from here. So we came over, and when I walked through the door, the feeling that I got was the same feeling I had that day that I walked into my previous church on the beginnings of me giving my life to Christ. I felt the presence of God here so dramatically, and this past year, the growth that my husband and I have had has been phenomenal. There's been hard times, there's been certainly things that I've had to work through, but it's been awesome. One of the things I thought of, because I've certainly had my ups and downs since I've come to God, God's worked a lot of things through me. And sometimes I feel discouraged because I'm not where I want to be, or I'm not who I want to be, or what I want to be. But I thought of it the other day, and God has to do a work. There's a lot of years. I was 30 before I came to Christ, and there's a lot of hurt and there's a lot of pain that I've gone through, and God has to work through that. And when I look back over the 5 years, if I could have even thought 5.5 years ago, oh, this is where I'm going to be, I would have laughed in your face. I have come so far. And sometimes you have to look back at that. Sometimes you have to stop and think, okay, I know I'm not where I need to be. Where was I? Where have I come from? Where has God led me through to get to this point that I'm at right now? And I guess my advice would be, don't be discouraged. Keep your faith in God.